Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is John Campea, and this is a companion video. What are companion videos? Well, I'm awfully glad that you asked. See, every day on the John Campea Show, Monday through Friday, we take the second half of the show to take your live comments and questions that people send in using the tip link in the description of the video. However, we usually don't have enough time to get around to all the questions that got sent in, but if you supported our channel and sent in some great questions, we don't want you to wait too long to get them answered, so we gather them up and we address them here on companion videos. You know, I was getting ready to do a companion video tonight. We usually pre-record them, but then I thought, Loki, episode 2 comes out tonight. I've already seen Loki episode 2. I can't wait for you guys to see Loki episode 2. And I thought, you know what? Instead of recording one, why don't I help a lot of you guys? Because I know a lot of you guys are trying to stay awake now for another 2 hours and 14 minutes to try to stay awake for Loki. So I thought, you know what? Why not help everybody out? Let's do a live video here addressing companion videos. And we'll help you guys stay awake whenever till it comes time for Loki. So it's good to have you guys here. Don't forget, we do have our open Loki spoiler discussion tomorrow. That'll be around 4 p.m. Los Angeles time. Just to give you a sense, it's now 9:45 p.m. here in Los Angeles. So that's what we're going to be doing. So yeah, guys, good to have all of you in here. We just posted this up a few minutes ago, and there's already over 100 of you guys in the live chat. So it's good to have you. As Fatty Young writes in the live chat, sleep or Loki? Tough. Not a tough decision because it's game day. It's Loki day. Stay up and watch it. I'm so excited for you guys to see it. It's been so hard to keep my mouth shut and not talk about Loki episode 2. It's been tough, guys. And that people, I got some people in the live chat asking, give us a spoiler. I'm not giving any spoilers for Loki episode 2. I'm just really glad that you guys are going to finally get to watch it. So good to see everybody in the live chat there. Joe, Ethan, Nikhil, BK, Ricky, everybody who's here. Good to have you here. So let's not waste any time. By the way, Gary Phillips sends in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thanks, man. I appreciate the support, dude. Appreciate that very much. All right. Oh my gosh, I didn't know that. Andrea P is saying it's 5 a.m. in Australia right now. Well, good morning to you, Andrea. Good to have you here as well. Okay. And oh my goodness, Daniel Rosales sends in like a $20 super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you, Daniel. Appreciate that, man, very much. Anyway, guys, oh yeah, and GA is mentioning this in the live chat that I just put up a preview. For those of you who don't know, now you guys know that I have a documentary that I have done called Movie Trailers, A Love Story. It is available on, if you live in the US or the UK, it is available on Amazon. Just you got to go to Amazon, search for Movie Trailers, A Love Story. You can get it there. If you live anywhere else, like anywhere else in the world, it's available on vimeo.com/on-demand/movie trailers. You can go and watch it there. Anyway, I put that movie out like 6 months ago. Had a tremendous response from everybody. We couldn't believe how much you guys supported it. It's just been an amazing ride. But I thought, well, it's been like 6 months, so it's a little bit out of sight, out of mind. So I decided that I would put up like a 20-minute preview of it. So if you go on the YouTube channel right now, I uploaded a little bit earlier tonight, like a 20-minute look, like 3 out of the 12 chapters of the movie I put up online on the YouTube channel today. So if you haven't had a chance to see Movie Trailers, A Love Story yet, and you want a little bit more of a taste for it, we've got 20 minutes of it up on the channel, so you guys can go and check it out there. And Secular Monk is saying, I love the Movie Trailers film. Thank you so much, Secular Monk. I really appreciate that very, very much. All right, guys. Without wasting more time, by the way, Crashing Coyote sends in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you, Crashing. Appreciate that, man. All right, let's get on over and start taking these questions, shall we? Let's start getting caught up here, and we will start things off with Habs for Life. I know where this one's going. Hey, John. I have never been as entertained as when you were blasting your beloved Maple Leafs. On top of, I'm wondering how you feel about seeing the CN Tower lit up in blue, blanc, rouge, followed by a Habs flag flying at City Hall. By the way, I love your show. I am not familiar with any of that, but listen, I'll tell you what. Of course, I'm pissed off that the Leafs dropped a 3-1 series lead and then lost 3 games in a row and lost the series, extending their playoff series winless streak to 18 years. 18 years since the Leafs have won a playoff series. Not so much fun. Not so much fun. Not at all. But I'll tell you what, and by the way, Markavel Blossom's in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thanks, Markavel. But I'll tell you what, listen. I may hate the Habs because I'm a Leafs guy. And if you're a Leafs guy, the Montreal Canadiens are sworn enemies. But I'm going to cheer for the Canadian team. And if Montreal, is the last team standing, I'm cheering for Montreal, even though they are the Toronto Maple Leafs' most hated and dreaded rivals. I will cheer for them because I will cheer for the Canadian team. All the other rivalries can go to the side. I'm always going to cheer for the Canadian team. All right, next up. By the way, Secular Monk says, can't be worse than being a Canucks fan. You shut your mouth, Secular Monk. You shut your mouth. Because the Toronto Maple Leafs have not been to the Stanley Cup Finals in my entire lifetime. The Canucks have. The Leafs have not. So don't you pretend like they're the same thing. They're not. They're not the same thing. Anyway, let's keep going here. Next up, Skylar Hillman writes, hey, John, a couple of weeks ago, I mentioned that I was laid off work. I remember that. Yeah. Good news. I've been offered a sales job and have 3 interviews for accounting and finance related jobs. That's awesome, dude. It's great that you've got a job to fall back on, but you can still look for something else. And you might get something that's a little bit more what you want. That's an excellent position to be in. I was thinking that I would have to let a couple of streaming services go. I know, right? Because today we live in an era where streaming services now cost more than cable ever did. I remember back in the day, we'd think, man, won't it be great when all of our entertainment is streaming and we won't have to pay like this outrageous cable bill? Yeah, well, guess what? We're paying more now for streaming than we ever did for our cable bills. I mean, granted, we're probably getting better content now and we're getting the content we want, but still we're actually paying more than we ever did. So I feel you, Skylar. Anyway, congratulations, man. That's awesome that you were able to get that job lined up. All right, next up, we've got Suthius who writes, holy shit, I just thought about how they could end the Fast and the Furious franchise. Whether it's in Fast 10 or not, we find out that sometime after Fast and the Furious 2, Dom died and was actually replaced with an android. Yep, why not up the crazy? Explains why he's been so invincible. I mean, it might. I mean, I still find, listen, I am a big fan of the Fast and Furious franchise, and I'm a big fan of Vin Diesel. I love Vin Diesel. But one of the kind of things that has always driven me crazy about Fast and Furious is Vin Diesel. You start in the first Fast and Furious, he's a grease monkey. He's a dude who likes to race cars and fix cars. And all of a sudden now he's like the world's most deadly spy. He's the most unstoppable force of nature. Governments tremble at the name of Dominic Toretto. I mean, it's kind of laughable, it is, but maybe saying he was actually an android all along, maybe that'll fix the whole thing. All right, let's move on. Nice thought, Suthius. All right, IMAV writes, what seminary did you attend? Are you still active in the church? Some language on the channel leads me to believe no. Fuck no. Anyways, love the content you put out on the channel. I wish you continued success. Thank you so much, IMAV. Yeah, I went to seminary, and I went to Bible College and Seminary. Now, it was a school. By the way, Leo Liang sends in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you so much for that, man. I appreciate that. So I went to a school that actually no longer exists. It changed into another school. So I went to a place called Ontario Bible College and Theological Seminary. That's where I went like many, many years ago. And it then changed after I left. It changed and morphed into Tyndale Seminary. I believe it changed into what was called Tyndale Seminary. And then sometime after that, a few years after that, it changed again and actually got fully accredited and became Tyndale University. And so, but it's so different now than what it was. I don't tell people I went to Tyndale, so anything like that. Now, am I active in the church today? No. I'm not going to go into why. Because I don't want, people don't come here for political discussions, and nobody here wants to talk about that. Suffice it to say that I consider myself, not that anybody cares, I consider myself a theist. Some people are atheists, which I respect, and some people like me are theists. I'm a theist. So yeah, I still, I very much believe in God and all that kind of stuff, but no, I do not participate in the church, and for my own reasons that I won't go into here, but yeah, there's that. I appreciate you asking, man. And by the way, Andreas, Vigilant sends in a super chat badge saying rage quit. I like that badge very much. All right. Thanks for sending that in, man. Appreciate that. All right. Thank you, Maui Mav. All right. Next up, We've got Suthius who writes, real talk here. A show like Loki reminds me why I love concepts of the universe such as predestination and free will. Are our lives predestined and predetermined, or do we ultimately have free will? Or are they one and the same? I love this concept. WandaVision tackled grief and how someone might deal with it. Falcon and the Winter Soldier tackled racial issues and overcoming them. MCU tackles issues and concepts that we as a species deal with and have conversations about on a daily basis. Love that. Yeah, listen, I gotta say, the MCU has always done a great job of changing gears. Like one movie, they're trying to save the universe. The next movie, a dude's trying to save his family, like in Ant-Man. And they're always changing gears. But lately now they've been getting more into getting deeper. And WandaVision was a great example of that. WandaVision is about a young woman dealing with her unspeakable grief. That's really what WandaVision is. And that type of depth in a comic book type of property is something that a few years ago people never would have thought was possible. And then you get into Falcon and the Winter Soldier and the issues that they deal with there. And now we get into some really big, heady, existential conversations in Loki. I love that Marvel swings for the fences. And it's not just Marvel. We're seeing other comic book properties starting to really dig down into the depth of what you can do with the comic book genre. And it's really good to see. Anyway, thanks for sending that in, Suthius. Let's see. Next up, we've got Cameron Barnett, who writes, hey, John and crew. One of my favorite YouTube channels is Comics Explained. It's a very good YouTube channel, man. The guy's a mad genius. It would be mind-blowing if you could have him on one day, maybe for a companion video or Loki spoiler discussion. I honestly don't think that would be a very good idea. Number one, I don't know if he actually knows anything about movies whatsoever. And number two, while I've read a lot of comics, my comic knowledge compared to his is infantile. I mean, bottom of the barrel. So there'd be really no reason for him to have me on, and there's really no reason for me to have him on. I will just continue to be somebody who admires his channel because he does really good work. If you've never seen Comics Explained, you should. He does a very, very good job. Like I said, just breaking down. He just has a very great depth of knowledge and just communicates it very well and puts really good videos together. And by the way, Iconic Reaction sends in a super chat badge in the live chat as well. Thank you, man. With a hand raising saying me. Thank you for that, dude. I appreciate that. Okay. Next up. And Angel in the live chat is saying, hey, Tyrese Gibson is saying that Morbius is in the MCU. I can tell you Morbius is not in the MCU. Tyrese Gibson is wrong. But John, he's actually in Morbius. I know. We're going to talk about it on the John Campea Show tomorrow. He said certain things, but it's already been debunked by Sony itself. Sony has already debunked what he said. So anyway, but again, we'll talk about that tomorrow. Anyway, next up. Where are we at? That was Cameron. All right, next up we've got C Squared writes, hey, John. After watching the first episode of Loki, I had a stunning realization. We need a Dr. Phil biopic starring Owen Wilson immediately. I'm being facetious, of course, but he actually has the voice, mannerisms, and mustache on point. Yeah, but here's the thing, though. Any good actor will be able to nail the mannerisms and all that kind of stuff. It doesn't have to be Owen Wilson. But can I just say for a second, can we just talk for a second that it is great seeing Owen Wilson back? It's great. I've said this before. I will say it again. I have been a fan of Owen Wilson ever since his movie Shanghai Noon with Jackie Chan. I love that movie. Shanghai Nights, the sequel, not so much. But the first one, Shanghai Noon, I love that movie. And it was my first real introduction to, at least the one that I really noticed, to Owen Wilson. And I've loved him ever since. And by the way, Rampage Predacon sends in a super chat badge. Thanks, Rampage. And then, of course, Owen Wilson ran into some personal problems, for those of you who remember. Apparently, he tried to take his own life at one point. And when that happened, that didn't make me stop being a fan of his, but it made it very difficult knowing the type of darkness he was struggling with to laugh with him on screen. You know what I mean? But Years have passed, and it's so good to see him back, and he's doing such a great job in Loki. I like him very much. I really, really do. And of course, Wedding Crashers. Yeah, who was mentioning SC House is mentioning Wedding Crash. He was obviously Wedding Crashers is one of the best comedies ever. All right, next up. Let's see. Cam K writes, big one. Okay, 1 of 6. Okay, John, bear with me here. Loki stole the Tesseract, which was not supposed to happen. I'm on board with the whole the Avengers did everything they were supposed to do, and I'm not concerned with that part. This is where it gets a bit tricky. Now that Dakota and... Oh, that's a separate thing altogether. Sorry, 2. Okay, so let's call the Loki that stole the Tesseract Loki V for variant. Loki V gets taken by the TVA, and the TVA erases his timeline V. If this is the case, there are moments which we watch the Avengers Endgame that got erased as well. For example, the Thor that says, Loki, where's Loki? He nor the moment in time exists now since it took place in timeline V, right? Then Caps, the two Caps who fought each other belonged to timeline V as well. Since it was Loki's disappearance that caused past Cap to suspect future Cap to be Loki, these moments belong to timeline V, and the TVA in front of our eyes erased that timeline. Now, this isn't technically a plot hole, just means those few moments we saw in Endgame did not happen that exact way because we witnessed timeline V, which got erased, and not the sacred timeline during those moments. We pick back up in the sacred timeline with Ant-Man yelling at Tony that they had one shot and they blew it. As there's no mention as to how they blew it, one of the guards or 2012 Avengers could have grabbed it before 2012 Loki decided. Your thoughts? Okay, now look. We have been talking a bit in some of the recent shows about the fact that, look, the very fact that Loki took that Tesseract kind of caused Cap and Tony and everybody to have to do something else, right? So if that wasn't supposed to happen, if Loki picking up the Tesseract wasn't supposed to happen, then the Avengers doing what they were doing wasn't supposed to happen. It basically all points to this, and this is what I've been saying all along. Time travel, whenever you introduce time travel in any stories, it always leads to big logic holes. Always, without exception. Even the best ones, like the best movies that have time travel, Star Trek, The Voyage Home, Back to the Future, even those, they're well documented, have plot holes because of the time travel stuff that they bring in. Now, with Loki, we still have, for those of you who haven't seen episode 2 yet, we still have 5 episodes to go. So maybe, I don't know, but maybe this gets addressed in future episodes in Loki, and maybe it ties all of it up. If not, they were look, even the writers of Endgame admitted in an interview, yeah, we had some logic holes with our whole time travel thing. We totally had logic holes with our time travel thing. The writers of the movie admitted it. And of course you do, because whenever you bring in time travel, there's going to be plot holes. And there's going to be logic conflicts. And it looks like Loki is no different. It looks like, but again, let's give it the benefit of the doubt for now and see how it kind of unravels as the show progresses. Anyway, thanks for writing that in, man. I mean, you laid it out perfectly, Cam K, and it just points to what we've been saying absolutely. Saying what they're saying so far leads to logic conflicts. Will they address them? And maybe they're not issues after all. We'll see. But for now, they are pretty much problems. Okay, thanks for sending that in, man. Next up, we pass by Dakota there, who writes, now that Dakota and Elle Fanning have started their own production company, what do you think the chances are that we may see them in a movie together? A good vampire flick? Oh, I have zero interest in that. Zero interest in that. A good vampire flick, Sisterhood of the Vampires, a very sexy succubus vampire movie I can always dream. I mean, look, we'll take that part out of it for a second. Dakota and Elle Fanning are very good actresses. Dakota might be, like, all cliches aside, Dakota might be the greatest child actor of all time. Now, she is no longer a child, but honestly, she very well could be the greatest child actor ever. Like, even when she was really young, I always believed her as a child actor. She was great. I don't know that there's ever been better. I really don't. And I think she turned into a good actress. Her sister is a very good actress. And it'll be interesting to see. I think, how can you not do, if you're them, just the novelty of it alone has value. So yeah, I think they'll do a movie together. I totally do. I think they will. All right, next up, we move on to Christopher Chow. And Christopher Chow writes, "Hey, John, happy anniversary to you and Ann. Thank you so much. Ann and I, of course, had our anniversary this weekend. I saw your Instagram that you stayed at the Grand Californian Hotel in Disneyland. What did you think? That's where my wife and I stayed on our honeymoon. We loved it." Listen, for those of you who follow me on social media and saw me rage about Disneyland the other day, and I will never go back to Disneyland. Unless a friend of mine is having some kind of special event there, I will never go back to Disneyland. And I explained why in my video. I might try Disney World sometime. I've never been to Disney World in Orlando, but Disneyland and me, we're now done. We've broken up. But I gotta say, the Grand Californian Hotel Resort at Disneyland was breathtaking. It really was. It was absolutely beautiful and phenomenal. Actually, let me see if I can find this. I'm not sure that I can right quickly, but let me see if I can find this image. Because take a look at this picture, if you will. Take a look at this picture. Look at this, just the foyer part of the place. A little bit of a bigger view of it. Look at that. Look at how gorgeous that is. And the beds were so comfortable. Like, we checked in and we were a little bit tired when we checked in, but we checked in, went up to our room, laid down in the bed. And I'm like, oh my God, I may not get up. This bed is amazing. And the resort itself is really good. So listen, while I may be kind of pissy at Disneyland right now, and again, I will never go again, nor will I ever recommend anybody go to Disneyland again. I got to tell you, I would be lying to you if I didn't tell you that Grand Californian Resort was a beautiful place, and it was a great place to stay. And I really did enjoy it. So I'm glad you guys were able to have your honeymoon there. And I'm glad you guys were able to have the experience that you guys had. And so while I may have had one of the most miserable experiences ever with Disneyland, the experience at the hotel was great. Hey, be fair. Got to call it as I see it. The hotel was great. Totally top marks. All right. Next up, we've got Lord Genome writes, one of three. I finally started watching Superman and Lois, and wow, have I been missing out. They are setting up some great plot threads, and while I've already been spoiled a little bit, it's not affecting me so far. One gripe is not the show, but how I watch it. Okay. Two of three. I do appreciate CW letting us watch for free, but the ads are repetitive and grating. Specifically, there's one with Bjork, "You Make Me Swoon" song, where she screams horribly. You'd probably recognize it if you heard it. First world problem, I know, but are there any TV streaming ads that you truly loathe, whether it be obnoxious music, a bad message, whatever? Hard mode, nothing political. It's okay if you can't think of anything. Just had to vent about the Bjork ad. Yeah, listen, one of the great things about the CW app is that if you don't have cable or you miss the show, you can just jump on the CW app and watch it for free. Of course, being free means it's supported with ads. And I have no problem with that. I have zero problem with a free service being supported with advertisements. Totally cool. If you're giving it to me for free, you got to make money somehow. Ads makes you money. I'm all good. The problem, though, with CW, and I've seen this on other streaming services as well, but it's most prominently a problem on CW. I don't have any one ad that I have a problem with. But what CW does, or at least what happens on CW when you're watching a show, and you guys in the live chat, tell me if you've had this experience, if you've watched the CW app, is that they'll play the same commercial like 8 times during a show. And sometimes they'll play them back to back. Like you'll hit, and by the way, Mukbang Review sends in a super chat badge in live chat. Thank you, Mukbang. Appreciate that. Like I'll be watching something on CW and then like, I don't know, like a Zillow commercial. You want to buy a house. We have houses to give you. You want a house you can grow into. And then the 30-second commercial ends. And as soon as the 30-second commercial ends, you want to buy a house. We have houses to show you. You want a house that you can move into. It's like, I feel like I'm in the Matrix. Like, is there a glitch? Didn't I just see this? And then immediately it plays the same commercial again. And then it'll play it maybe not 3 times in a row, but then it'll play the same commercial 3 or 4 or 5 more times during the course of the hour that you're watching that show. It drives me crazy. And by looking in the live chat, it looks like a lot of you guys have had the same experience as me. See, I don't mind the commercials. You know what the one good thing they do with the commercials? I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but when the commercial break starts, it'll actually say 1 of 4. So you know exactly how many commercials that are going to play. But sometimes it's like the commercial break starts and it's like 1 of 7. I'm like, oh my God, 7 commercials to sit through till we get back to it. But again, I get it. You're giving me the show for free. I got to watch ads. But yeah, man, when they play the same ad over and over, because listen, by the time that episode of Supernatural is over, I fucking hate Zillow. I loved Zillow before Supernatural started, but by the time that episode of Supernatural was done, I fucking hated Zillow. I never wanted to hear Zillow again. I burned it off my phone. I took it off my iPad. I wanted nothing more to do with Zillow. Because I had it in my nightmares, my dreams. You want to buy a house? We have a house to sell you. You want a house you can grow? And I'm like, ah, and I wake up in a cold sweat. It's horrible, man. Horrible. Anyway, so that's my experience, Lord Genome. That's my experience. All right, next up, we got Major Tom who writes, 1 of 2. Greetings, John and company. I've had some time to think about the news with Rob Zombie directing the Munsters. As a Rob Zombie fan, I'm morbidly curious. Personally, I love his visual style and his movies, and the performances he gets from the actors. My problem with Rob Zombie is that his writing is all over the place. His versions of Halloween 2 and 3 from Hell in particular were really bad. I think he needs to hire writers instead of doing it himself since he writes his own movies. And listen, you're kinder to Rob Zombie on this than I would be. Now look, I am a fan of Rob Zombie's songs. Actually, if I loaded up my YouTube music on here, my main playlist, which is now like over 270 songs long, my main playlist on here, there are a number of really awesome Rob Zombie tracks. I love Rob Zombie as a musician and his music. Love Rob Zombie's music. I really don't like him as a director. And I don't try to say that to sound unkind, but I have found the one he did, the Salem one, that one was not bad. I thought that one was okay, but his Halloween movies were dreadful. I did not like 3 from Hell, and I didn't like the 2 that he's really big for. I haven't liked anything that he's directed. Like, not a single one did I really like. And I agree. I think his writing is all over the place. I think his direction is all over the place. I just don't like his sensibilities that way. I'm a big fan of his as a musician, but who knows, right? Who knows? Like maybe this Munsters thing he's doing will be the one that he really breaks through. Maybe it will be. Look, despite the fact that I'm not a fan of him, you try to go into everything with an open mind. And maybe this will be the one that turns out to be great. But I'm not going to lie to you. I am Crashing Coyote says he's a better director than Melissa McCarthy's husband, though. Yes, I will say absolutely yes. He is a better director than Melissa McCarthy's husband. I will give you that for sure. All right, let's move on now. Thanks for writing that in, Major Tom. Next up, Dan Townsend writes, hey, John. So they said that time moves differently in the TVA, but how much slower do you think it does? I'm conscious at this point in the main MCU timeline, there is no Loki and no Tesseract to help repair the Rainbow Bridge in Asgard after New York. Well, listen, the way I think they mean it, and some people getting sick of me using this remote control, but still the point is good. The way I try to describe and the way I understand, and I could be wrong, but the way I understand time and the sacred timeline is, the sacred timeline is a fixed thing. The timekeepers in the TVA are like me, compared to this remote. They are outside of it. So when Mobius says time moves differently, I think that was his just real simple way of saying we exist outside of time. And we can look at the sacred timeline, the beginning of time, the end of time, and everything that happens in between. We can look at it all at once. It's just physically there. We can look at it, but we are outside of it. So I think, again, when Owen Wilson's Mobius says time moves differently here, I think that was his way of saying to Loki, who would have no idea how this works, that's just a real simple way of him saying we live outside of time in the TVA. So how long have we been here is not really a concept that applies to us because we exist outside of time. At least that's how I interpreted it. I could be wrong, but that's how I interpreted it. Okay, next up. We go, a small suggestion, writes, hey, John, I don't have a question this time, but a small suggestion, if I may. It was a refreshing change when you brought in Dennis. Yeah, having Dennis on Friday was great. Could you make this additional guest as a monthly thing? Also, my wife isn't infinite. She remembers everything in the past. And every married guy out there says amen to that, brother. Yeah, listen, how great was it? For those of you who weren't here on Friday, we had me and Rob and the Zen master himself, Dennis Zen, who there is nobody I've worked with longer in this business than Dennis Zen. I mean, I literally worked with Dennis Zen all the way back when I was still running the movie blog. I started working with Dennis back then. He was working for another company that I was doing some work with, and that's when he and I started to collaborate together. And then when I went to AMC, I said, the guy I got, everybody that came to work for me at AMC came and applied. Dennis Zen is the only guy I went out and chased after. I'm like, Dennis, you got to come work with me. Dennis, you got to come work with me. Please, Dennis, come work with me. Like, I recruited Dennis, right? I've never done that. I never did that with anybody. I've never done it with anybody since. Everybody else always came to me for the gig. Dennis is the one guy I went after. So he had some free time in his schedule. And so he came on the show on Friday. It was great. And yes, Dennis will be popping up on the show more regularly now. Not multiple times a week. He doesn't have time for that. But maybe, 3 or 4 times a month, actually. Maybe 3 or 4 times a month. We'll be able to have the great Zen Master come on. I thought it was great to have him on here, and it will be good to see him again. You know what's funny? He doesn't even know this yet. Dennis doesn't know this yet. I'm telling you something right now about Dennis that Dennis doesn't even know yet. So I got to send him a text message today. He and I arranged for him to come on the show again this Friday. But then earlier today, my wife reminded me, as Ann and I were swimming in our pool earlier, Ann was like, I was mentioning, I think Dennis is going to be on the show on Friday. And Ann said, how can he come on the show Friday? You're not having a show Friday. I'm like, what? I totally forgot. Ann and I and a couple of our friends, we're going to Vegas this weekend. I haven't been to Vegas in over a year. So I have to let Dennis know not to come on the show on Friday because there's not going to be a John Campea show on Friday because Thursday night, Ann and I and a couple of people are going to Vegas for the weekend. Yay! So excited about going back to Vegas. Haven't been in over a year. It's so cool. But yes, worry not. Worry not. We are going to have Dennis on more often. And I'm very excited about that. Very excited. Whenever his schedule allows. All right, next up. Aaron writes, one of the last things Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. fans had to hang on to keep their show canon with the MCU was that final 2 seasons took place in an alternate timeline. Loki just blew that theory completely apart. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. can in no way be canon now. And listen, they actually drove that point home. Like, I get it. You guys know I hate Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I love Clark Gregg. I love him. And I love the character of Agent Coulson. And I will watch and support anything he does. But I thought, and Ming-Na Wen, but I thought that show was terrible. It had a few episodes that I kind of liked, but overall I thought Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was terrible. But the one thing that was always crystal clear is it is not canon with the MCU. And people say, but John, they're doing that, blah, blah. I got it. But as long as Kevin Feige completely refused to ever acknowledge anything in the show, the reality was it wasn't there. When they did WandaVision and show that it was a completely different Darkhold than the one they had in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., that drove the nail in the coffin. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is not a part of Kevin Feige's MCU. And then they really drove it home with Loki, just saying, yeah, Agent Coulson died in Avengers, period, end stop. He didn't survive that. He wasn't still sticking around and acting on S.H.I.E.L.D.'s behalf. So they really drove a nail in that one. So look, that doesn't mean if you were a fan of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. that you can't still love that show. Of course you can. But yeah, it's not canon with Kevin Feige's MCU, and he was always pretty clear about that. Anyway, so yeah, you're right about that, Aaron. You're absolutely right. Okay, next up, Willow writes. And by the way, for those of you joining us a little bit late, yes, we are doing this companion video live. I was going to record this one, but I thought, you know what? A lot of my film-loving brothers and sisters out there are trying to stay awake right now for Loki, which starts in a little over an hour and a half from now. 1 hour and 40 minutes from now is when Loki starts. So I said, you know what? Why don't we just do this live? And that way we can all hang out and everybody can chat amongst themselves, and we'll just help you guys stay awake until Loki comes. And by the way, I posted this live event 20 minutes before we started. Didn't let anybody know, 20 minutes before we started, and we've already got like well over 500 people in the live chat right now. Good to have all you guys here. Thanks for joining us, but that's why we're doing this companion video live. So, hey, everybody in the live chat, everybody's saying hello. Good to have you guys here. All right, let's keep things rolling here. Willow writes, happy belated anniversary to you and Ann. Thank you so much for that, Willow. Appreciate that. A bit of a personal question, but at what point did you realize that she was the one? This is a story I actually told at my wedding. By the way, Iconic Reaction sends in a super chat badge. I'll keep this. I'll give you the short version. So when I first came to LA, I was in a relatively long-term relationship with somebody. And the idea, I was only going to come to LA for 1 year. And me and this girl back home, we're going to try to make it work long distance for a year. Like, she would come out and visit me for a weekend. And then the following month I would travel home for a weekend. And then the following month she'd come out and visit me. So we were only going to get one weekend together a month, but we figured we could do that for a year. After just a couple of weeks, she decided that this wasn't going to work for her, that this being separate thing, and she kind of gave me an ultimatum, come home or we need to break up because I can't do this. And I respect that. So we broke up. So at that point, I decided, okay, I'm a Canadian kid. I'm in Los Angeles and I'm single. So I decided, I'm going to spend the next year dating as many hot Hollywood, you know how guys think. I'm thinking I'm going to date as many hot Hollywood actresses as I can, blah, 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 blah. So anyway, it was all going very well. It was going very well. And then through Milo Ventimiglia and Mark Neville-Dean and Brian Taylor, I've told this story before, so I won't go over it again, but through those guys, I met Ann. And we hit it off. And so we went out once or twice, and I had a really good conversation with her. I just said, hey, look, I'm only going to be here for about another 10 months, and then I'm going to move back to Canada. I'm going home. So I'm not looking for anything serious. And Ann was like, no problem. I just got out of a 7-year relationship. 7 years. Like, she was dating him since she was like a teenager. I'm getting out of a 7-year relationship, so I'm not looking for anything serious either. Great. So we hung out for a week, and then we hung out for 2 weeks, and then we hung out for a month, and then 3 months. And it was around the 3-month mark, I think, that I realized that I wasn't just looking forward to seeing her again. I needed to see her again, if that makes any sense. Because once I started dating her, because she's super cool and she's super hot. Yeah, she's going to see this. And that's right. My wife is hot. And by the way, Iconic Reactions and Matthew Denton both send in super chat badges. Thank you guys. I appreciate that. But you know what I mean? Like, you start dating somebody and you wake up in the morning, you think, I'm looking forward to seeing that person again. It was around the 3-month mark where I realized that not only was I looking forward to seeing her again, I needed to see her again. And that's when I knew, I'm in trouble. This whole plan that I had so carefully, played out, that I was going to be here for another 10 months, for a year, and I'm going to date all these Hollywood girls because, in LA, you throw a nickel, it hits 10 hot people on it'll hit 4 hot guys and 6 hot girls before that nickel hits the ground. Clearly, I fit into LA because I'm as hot as they come. Obviously not. So anyway, I think I had this big plan, and Anne ruined those plans because I was smitten. She was super cool. The best personality I've ever met in a person. I am attracted to people who have their shit together. I mean, that's something you should know about me. I'm attracted to people who have their shit together. So, like, I know when I would sit down and talk to her, she goes, well, I've got this degree and this degree. She only had 2 degrees at the time. She's now got 4. But she was like, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and this is how I'm going to do it, and blah, 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 blah. And she just knew what she was doing and the direction she was going, and I found that hot. I'm not going to lie to you. People who have their shit together, I find that hot. And I was like, so now I'm looking at this girl who's not just obviously incredibly beautiful and spontaneous and fun and into all the things that I'm into, MMA and comic books and movies and everything like that, but she's also got a great head on her shoulders. When I get talking about Anne, I can go on and on and on, but she's got a great head on her shoulders. She's got her shit together. She's got ambition and drive, and she's got a plan and blah, blah, and I find that hot. And it was just like, okay. And it wasn't long after that I just realized I was completely head over heels. So yeah, that's when I knew. Anyway, I know most of you guys did not tune in here to hear me talk about the story of me and Anne. I get that. That's totally fine. But Willow asked, so I thought I'd share that. By the way, for those who didn't see it, this was a picture of us this weekend. We were out celebrating our anniversary this weekend. This was me and Anne out having a good time out and around Anaheim. We went to this great restaurant in Anaheim called the White House. It's an Italian steakhouse. And then we went to the sports pub to start watching the UFC and have some dessert. And then we went back to our hotel and we watched the rest of the UFC there. Then we went swimming and then we went walking. It was a great, great weekend. We had a great time. Anyway, so there's all that. Okay. Enough with that stuff. Get out of here, Anne. People are here to talk about their movie stuff. Nobody wants to talk about Anne. I'm sure all of you would rather have Anne on here than me. So, fine. So let's keep going, shall we? And by the way, WizR74 sends in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you, WizR74. I appreciate that, man. All right. Let's see. Next up, we've got... That was Willow. Doug Tarnovian writes... I finished my second semester in May. Congratulations, man. That's awesome. I wanted to thank you and Rob for giving me the idea to write about how important the film industry is to the global economy for my final paper. That's awesome. And another thank you for showing articles of theaters bouncing back from COVID. That's right, because we do show those articles when we talk about them on the show. Dude, that is awesome that you're doing those sorts of studies and you're getting to talk about that stuff. That is great. Thank you for sharing that, Doug. Appreciate that very much. All right, next up. Joe writes, hey, John. Firstly, just bought Nemesis to read. Awesome. I got turned on. Nemesis was the very first comic book that John Schnepp ever gave to me to read. And I fell in love with it. It's terrific. Anyway, I just bought Nemesis to read, so thanks for recommending it. Secondly, what Jake G was on about. In Endgame 2014, Thanos comes to 2018 to fight the Avengers. What he's asking was... What the TVA did with the timeline that Thanos left, bring on the filthy. Again, the way they kind of describe it in Loki episode 1 is that, listen, time traveling does not necessarily break the sacred timeline. If the sacred timeline has people doing time travel in it, and that's the repeated process, the billions of times that the timeline has played itself out, then there's nothing wrong with that. Time travel in and of itself does not break the sacred timeline. It's when you deviate from what was supposed to happen. And how are you supposed to know if you're deviating from what was supposed to happen? Well, I guess you don't know until the TVA comes and picks you up, I suppose. So there's that, I guess. But yeah, it makes it a little bit confusing. Anyway, thanks for bringing that up, and Doug. All right, or Joe, I should say. And enjoy Nemesis. Enjoy Nemesis. I love that book. All right, next up. That was Joe's first one. Joe's second one. Also, John, in regards to Nemesis, I hope they get Matthew Vaughn to direct. He and Millar seem to have a good track record. Bring on the filthy. Well, again, listen, it doesn't need to be Matthew Vaughn. I mean, Matthew Vaughn's but there are other great directors who could do great things too. So that's why I never get into X director directing X movie sort of conversations. If it's Matthew Vaughn, great. But there could be 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 other directors who might even do a better job with it. So, but yeah, if they announce Matthew Vaughn, I'd be excited about it for sure. All right. Thanks for sending that in, Joe. Next up, some dude writes, what was the first movie you watched where you realized Bruce Willis doesn't care anymore? Did it happen in the 2000s? I'm trying to place the last movie where he actually tried. Man, that is a good question. That is a good question. And I'm not totally sure. Because when Bruce Willis gives a crap, like for instance, the last movie I remember where Bruce Willis gave a crap, and you could tell he was actually trying, was Looper. Looper was the one to me, the one he was in with Joseph Gordon-Levitt. That to me was like, you could tell he's trying. When Bruce Willis tries and gives a crap, then he's excellent, which makes it all the more tragic when you watch him in these movies that he obviously just doesn't give a shit about. Like Death Wish, directed by Eli Roth, that should have been a great movie. The Death Wish remake should have been a great movie. Eli Roth directing it, that's a good fit. Bruce Willis in that iconic role, that should have been a great fit. And then you get into the movie and you could just tell Bruce Willis was just sleepwalking through it. He didn't give a crap. I can't point to one scene in that movie where Bruce Willis looks like he even tried remotely. And it's been like that for a long time. And again, if he didn't have all the talent in the world, I wouldn't care. But he is super talented and he is capable of delivering terrific performances, which only makes it even more maddening when you see him just not give a crap. Illmatic 316 in the live chat is saying too many diehards, maybe. Yeah, too many diehards. And the beat goes on in the live chat says, talk to Kevin Smith about Bruce Willis. You want to hear a great story? Go on YouTube and search Kevin Smith talks about Bruce Willis. It pretty much sums it up. It really, really, really does. Anyway, thanks for writing that in, guys. All right, let's keep going on here. That was some dude. Next up, Caleb writes, can you rank these movies by how they're dealt with, by how they've, I don't like to, just so you know, before I keep reading, I don't like ranking things, just so you know, but can you rank these movies by how they dealt with an actor's death? My order is Rise of Skywalker, worst. Then Rogue One, then The Crow, and Furious 7. The best, is Furious 7 the best? They really did a great job with the tribute to Paul Walker. Oh yeah. Yeah, they totally did. They totally did. Especially when you consider, let's go back a couple of years to, Fast 7, obviously they were right in the middle of shooting that movie when Paul Walker died. And so then they took a break. They had to figure out, how do we proceed? They proceeded with the film and they did what they did. And listen, they turned that tragedy, and I mean this in the most respectful way possible. They turned that tragedy into a real strength of that movie. They took the tragedy of the passing of Paul Walker and made it one of the most beautiful things about that movie. Because who doesn't get a little weepy when you see that end and they're driving in the car side by side, when I see you again, and they're driving in their cars and then the cars go off on their separate ways. That was effing beautiful. I'm getting chills thinking about it. That was beautifully handled and beautifully done, both on camera and off camera. Because what did they do? They went and got Paul Walker's brothers to come. They made it a family. They made it a family thing. And they took that tragedy and made something beautiful out of it. And in the midst of a bonkers Fast and the Furious 7 movie, they did something really remarkable, especially when you consider the bonkers situation they were in. They were in an impossible situation. One of their main stars dies halfway through the movie. How do you continue? Do you continue? There were a bunch of people saying they should stop. There were a bunch of people saying, you can't, nope, you can't finish making the movie. That'll be disrespectful to Paul Walker if you keep making the movie. You should stop the movie now, which is obviously ludicrous. Absolutely ludicrous. But there were a lot of people at the time saying, it's disrespectful to keep making that movie. They were totally wrong. It would have been disrespectful to stop. It was respectful to continue on, finish out his legacy, and give him that kind of send-off. That is immortalized. It's just incredible. The Rise of Skywalker thing is another great example of that. They should have just continued on. I'll never blame anybody, because the passing of Carrie Fisher, it created a no-win situation for everybody. And everybody approached it, everybody at Lucasfilm and Disney and JJ himself and everybody, their driving motivation was, how can we most respectfully handle this situation now that Carrie has passed away? I just happen to have a different opinion about the best way to handle it and what was the most respectful way to handle it. I thought the best way to handle it and the most respectful way to handle it was to recast the role of Leia. To say, Carrie, don't you worry about it. You rest in peace. We've got you. We've got your back. All right? Don't you worry that you're not here to finish out Leia. We'll carry this baton across the finish line for you. And we will do it to honor you. And we will bring this character that you have brought to life for generations of fans. And we will make sure that this character goes across the finish line properly, in a way befitting of the life that you brought to this character. And they should have recast. Instead, what they did was, and again, their motivation was to honor her and respect her, and I respect that. What they decided to do instead was take old footage they shot of her from previous movies that was never used on screen and kind of cobble together scenes to kind of shoehorn her character in. And it just never worked, and it never felt right. All those scenes felt very out of place and very jarring. And yeah, it just didn't work. And that movie had a lot of problems, but that was one of the big problems. It just didn't work. It felt awkward and jarring. And then the way they had to write, once they ran out of footage to use of her, all of a sudden she dies. Like Leia suddenly dies because they had no more footage of Carrie that they could. It just was the wrong decision. They should have recast. She was friends with Meryl Streep, maybe the greatest actress of all time. To have Meryl Streep, Carrie Fisher's friend, to come in and carry that baton across the finish line for her would have been perfect. It would have been perfect. Anyway, that's kind of my commentary on that. Sorry, I spent too much time on that. Let's keep on going here. King Artros of Monteval writes, Hey, John, I found myself watching the Amazon series Flack this weekend. I'm not even familiar with it. It's like the British version of Scandal, but with celebrities instead of politicians. The series stars Anna Paquin. Oh, no. I have watched that. I watched the first 2 episodes of Flack. Anyway, the series stars Anna Paquin and Sophia Okonedo. I thought it was well written and entertaining. Okay, so I watched the first episode of that. Yeah, where Anna Paquin plays like a fixer, right? There are people, celebrities who have problems. She goes in there and fixes it, right? Like, I think the storyline that I was watching was like she was trying to save the reputation of a celebrity chef who got caught having affairs or something. Anyway, I thought it was interesting, but I never kept up with it. Like, I watched the first 2 episodes and then I kind of ditched on it. I didn't hate it, and I might go back and try it at some point. But if I go back, it's going to be because I really do like Anna Paquin. I like her a lot. So I might go back and give it another shot. We'll see. All right, let's move on here. Next up, we've got Crashing Coyote, who writes, "Happy anniversary to you and Ann. Thank you so much. E3 was this week. Did you get a chance to see the trailers for Avatar Frontier of Pandora or Guardians of the Galaxy? I think both games have potential to be great, but could also be huge disappointments like the Avengers game was." I mean, it depends on who you ask. I actually know a couple of people that really do like that Avengers game. I know a couple of people that are like, you know what, this movie got, this game got a bad rap. It's actually a good game. Like, just a lot of people got upset because they didn't look like the actors in the movies. But I never played it, so I can't say. And by the way, Connor Smith sends in a super chat badge in live chat. Thank you, Connor. Appreciate that, man. So anyway, there's that. I have not watched any of the trailers. And we talked about the Guardians of the Galaxy thing today, but I hadn't seen the trailer, nor have I seen the Avatar one. No, I haven't watched them, so I can't really comment on them. But hey, listen, I'm sure they're going to be great. I'm definitely going to try them, but I haven't watched trailers yet. So maybe once I do, we'll have another chance to talk about them again. Thanks for bringing that up, Crashing. All right, next up. Sandy writes, "Does Mobius know that Loki saw the entirety of his life tape? He probably guessed. Or do you think he doesn't know that he finished viewing his file?" Well, all Mobius would have to do is look at the tape and see that the tape is all the way at its end. So now the show doesn't make it clear, Sandy, but I'm going to assume that Mobius knows he watched it all the way to the end. Because again, all he has to do is look down at the table and see that the tape is finished. And it wasn't still running when he left the room. So I'm going to guess that he does know. That's my guess. Unless they say otherwise in the show as we move forward. All right, Frankie writes, "Just throwing this idle thought. Came about after watching Loki. How likely do you think that the MCU Secret Invasion will not use Skrulls, but alternate versions from the universe, thinking that the multiverse will be this cycle's Infinity Stones?" That's funny that you bring that up, Frankie, because me and a friend of mine were talking about this a couple weeks ago. That, we were discussing the whole thing about the comics, the movies and the TV shows, or the movies and the TV shows. And everybody thinks Secret Invasion is going to involve the Skrulls. But of course, the Skrulls are friendly in the MCU. They're friends. They're allies in the MCU. That's now how it was in the comics when Secret Invasion was coming about. And my friend suggested, what if it's not about the Skrulls at all? What if it's not about the Skrulls at all? Because remember, Civil War was very different from the comic story Civil War. Certain elements were similar, yes, and I'm sure there would be. So I'm not here saying that their Secret Invasion isn't going to be about the Skrulls. I'm not necessarily saying that, but it's an interesting theory. And one that I wouldn't be surprised if Kevin Feige replaced the Skrull, just like kind of the part of Peter Parker Spider-Man in Civil War was replaced with Black Panther. They kind of replace Skrulls with something else. Again, I'm not saying that's what they're going to do. I'm not saying that's what they're going to do. There can still be some bad Skrulls out there. But I'm just saying, I wouldn't be surprised if you're absolutely right. I wouldn't be surprised by that at all. We'll have to wait and see, but it's a good theory to keep in mind. All right, next up, Tim Platt writes, I just watched Train to Busan, excellent film, for the first time. I heard it was great, but I wasn't prepared for just how excellent it is. I was expecting a great zombie movie, but it's so much more than that. Just a superb film I can't recommend enough, and it's free on Tubi. Yeah, listen, I was a little bit like, I was later to the Train to Busan party than most people were. Most of my friends had already seen it before I finally got around to watching it, because I'll be honest with you, I find most zombie stuff pretty tiring. I mean, we've seen it all before. We have seen it all before, right? And so I don't get excited really much by anything zombie related. Very rarely do I get any kind of excitement about it. But Train to Busan was different, man. It was really different, and I was thrilled, and I was on the edge of my seat the whole time. And if any of you guys have not seen Train to Busan, check it out. By the way, I never did watch the sequel. Guys in the live chat, what was the name of the sequel they just did? It was like Area something or other, or Province something or other. I can't remember the name of it. Guys in the live chat, throw in what the name of that was. Peninsula? Was that what it was called? Peninsula? I can't remember. But anyway, Train to Fondue. Peninsula. It was Peninsula. Okay, so Angel, Connor, Tim are all saying it's Peninsula. Okay. So I never did watch Peninsula. I don't know why. I just remember it was coming out, then I forgot about it. And then I need to get around to watching that again. But if you guys have not seen Train to Busan, you absolutely got to see Train to Busan. It's fantastic. And we're about to see one of the dudes from Train to Busan in Eternals. So that's kind of an exciting thing too. A little bit of an MCU crossover there as well. All right. And Angel is saying Peninsula actually wasn't bad. Again, I haven't seen it yet myself, but I need to still. Okay. Next up. We've got Man from Manila who writes, Hey, John, another underwhelming movie of the year for me, The Misfits. Pierce Brosnan was great, but they wasted good talent in Tim Roth. I did not like all scenes with Nick Cannon. Have you watched this? No. I like Pierce Brosnan very much. I love Tim Roth. I don't have any good or bad feelings about Nick Cannon. Nick Cannon is Nick Cannon. But just the look of it was very, very low budget cable access movie of the week kind of feeling to me. So I'm not gonna lie to you. I just didn't bother. I mean, not to mention it was obviously a very busy weekend for me with Ann and I having our anniversary and a lot of other things. And I'm getting ready to go to Vegas and I'm trying to get caught up on a bunch of other stuff too. So it wasn't really high on my priority list. But I know I saw a preview for it and I'm like, I have zero interest in this. And I'm not surprised at all, man, from Manila. I am not surprised at all to hear you say that. It would have been great if you wrote in and said, man, that new Pierce Brosnan movie is awesome. It would have been great if you wrote that in. But yeah, man, I'm not surprised to hear that at all. And by the way, 007 Robot Chicken sends in like, with a Kansas City Chiefs logo as his image there, sends in like a $50 super chat in the live chat. Thank you so much for that, man. That is incredibly generous. Thank you for supporting our channel on that level, man. That is really, really nice of you. Thank you so much for that. Anyway. Okay. And by the way, I see Disney Freak saying no Loki pre-show. Again, I announced this on the John Campea Show earlier today, but I'll remind you, I had said I was going to do a pregame show today for Loki episode 2, but I decided not to because I had a few of you guys write into me, make a very, very good point. And some of you guys wrote into me and said, hey, John, since you've already seen Loki episode 2, which starts, by the way, in 1 hour and 10 minutes, you're 1 hour and 10 minutes away from being able to watch Loki episode 2, guys. Okay, anyway. A bunch of people wrote to me and said, John, since you've seen Loki episode 2 now, you can't answer any of the questions that people write in. Because the whole idea of the pregame show is to talk about the upcoming episode and our speculations and our theories about it. But since I've seen everything, since I've seen episode 2, I would have to answer every question that comes in with, I can't answer that. I can neither confirm nor deny that. and then move on to the next question and say, I can't answer that. I can neither confirm or deny that, because I risk spoiling everything. And so I ultimately decided that you guys were right. It would probably be a bad idea. And so we decided not to do the pregame show today. Next week, so for episodes 3, 4, 5, and 6, we will absolutely do Loki pregame shows on Tuesday afternoons and Tuesday evenings. We will absolutely do them. But this week decided not to. So anyway, that's just, we thought was the best thing. But tomorrow we will do a spoiler discussion. We will do our Loki episode 2 spoiler discussion tomorrow. Okay, guys, just got a little bit of time left here. Let's get through a few more of these. Kyle Ginder writes, John, since there has been 2 failed attempts of adapting the Dark Phoenix, do you think Marvel should stay clear of Dark Phoenix storyline? Because would the general audience really want to see a 3rd version of it? Yeah. Yeah. And by the way, by the time they get around to doing a Dark Phoenix story, it'll be like probably 3 or 4 years since the last one that they tried. And everybody will know it's a totally different thing than before. Look. Think of the Fantastic Four. Like, nobody's saying, well, should Marvel even do Fantastic Four? I mean, they've had 4 failed attempts before. Do they really want to do it? No, everybody knows. Everybody's excited about Marvel taking a crack at Fantastic Four. So, listen, by the time they start X-Men in the MCU, and then they're not going to come out of the gate with a Dark Phoenix story. So that's going to take a couple of years that they probably do at some point later down the line. So it's probably going to be 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years in between, but people will know this is a different thing. It'll be totally different X-Men, totally different actors, all that kind of stuff. And just as people today are getting excited about Fantastic Four, even though the previous ones were duds, I think the same thing will happen with a Dark Phoenix thing. And that's my guess at any rate. Okay. Thanks for that, Kyle. Next up, Sotheus writes, on that. Oh, and by the way, Kevin Cow writes in, sends in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you, Kevin. And as well, Fernando Rodriguez also sends in a super chat badge, like a $10 super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you, Fernando. Appreciate that, dude, very much. Sotheus writes, on that Superman and Lois companion video you did, you basically called the DC animated universe drivel. Oh, no, I didn't basically call it drivel. I explicitly call it drivel. Marvel and DC's straight-to-home video animation is garbage. I know some of you love the Marvel animated stuff and the DC and straight-to-home video animated stuff, and that's great. I'm not trying to yuck on your yum. But, you guys expect me to give my honest opinion of things and not to sugarcoat it. My honest opinion is the straight-to-home video stuff that Marvel and DC produce is absolute diarrhea-inducing garbage. There. So not basically saying, am I being clear? I think I'm being clear. Again, just because I think that doesn't mean you need to think that. Not at all. We probably have very different opinions about that. But just so I'm not to be misunderstood, it is drivel. Anyway, I know it's subjective, but I feel like you lose credibility when you dismiss the classic Justice League series like that. Also, when you equate Marvel quality to DC. Oh, listen, Sotheus, I'm sorry. Go fuck yourself. Go fuck yourself. This bullshit of you lose credibility when you don't like something I like. Oh, I'm sorry. So you are the standard of what's credible. And if I don't like something that you do, I lose credibility. Go fuck yourself. It's honestly, I have no time for bullshit fans who have attitudes like that. I have absolutely no time. Listen, if you like that stuff, I celebrate that. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, Sotheus, you like that garbage? You lose credibility as a fan if you say you like it. No, I'm not going to say that because I know it's all subjective. I celebrate if you like it. That's great. But for you to bring this horse shit and say, oh, you don't like what I like? Well, you lose credibility. Okay, just go fuck yourself. Just absolutely go fuck yourself. That is such bullshit to say. And you just reveal yourself to be an idiot when you say garbage like that. Like, just say, hey, man, I'm sorry to hear that you hated that. I really like it. And I'd go, awesome that you like it. Yeah, it's too bad that it doesn't work for me and I don't like it. Yeah, you don't like what I like, so you lose credibility. I'm going to continue masturbating to the bra ads in my mom's magazine. Like, yeah, go fuck off. Anyway, can you tell I really don't have patience for that types of shit? I really don't have patience for that kind of shit. Anyway, next up. Caleb writes, which of these do you think was the best dark, gritty update for a series that had kind of lost its way and gotten a bit too silly? Batman Begins, Jurassic World, or Casino Royale? I'm a huge Batman Begins fan, but I think Casino Royale is the best 007. Casino Royale is amazing. Casino Royale is absolutely amazing. Ooh, that's a good one. That is good because look, first of all, let's be clear. Dark and gritty is not better, right? Dark and gritty is not better. Dark and gritty can be better depending on the circumstance in which it needs to be applied. Light and fun might be the better thing depending on the property that you're approaching. When Batman Begins came out, it needed a change of direction. Like, we were all still kind of suffering post-traumatic stress syndrome from the bat nipples and everything from that different era of Batman films. It needed to be different. It needed to change gears. And when Christopher Nolan brought out Batman Begins and gave it that grounded kind of more gritty thing, it was such a juxtaposition opposite approach from what the previous Batman films that it really made an impact, and it was perfect for that. You could say the same thing about Casino Royale. Because, listen, I like a lot of the Pierce Brosnan. I like it very much, actually. I like a couple of the Pierce Brosnan Bond films. But yeah, you're right. The Bond franchise, even long before Pierce Brosnan, even you still get into some of the Roger Moore things and whatever, some of the Bond films are just completely ridiculous. Let's call it what it is. Some of them are really ridiculous. And then comes along Casino Royale and completely does a reset of our expectations of what a Bond film is. And man, you bringing up those two, I mean, take Jurassic World out of it. That one doesn't compare. But Batman Begins and Casino Royale, man, I'm going to have to take a push on that. I'm going to call it a draw. Because both those are two terrific examples, Caleb, that you bring up about a real series reset going with a darker, grittier, more grounded tone. Those are two great examples of that. And I honestly don't know if I can think of one off the top of my head. What do you guys think in the live chat? Which one do you think was kind of the better reset in relation to where the series was? I'm going to say it's a push myself. Maybe you guys think one over the other, but I think they're great. By the way, DJ Tater Skins, I love that username, sends in like a $20 super chat badge in live chat. Thank you, DJ. Flash also sends in a super chat badge, as does Connor Smith and Fernando Rodriguez. Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate that very much, dude. I appreciate that a lot, guys. Thank you so much. All right. A couple more here. Jordan Risley writes, hey, man, how do you conclude Marvel giving She-Hulk a TV show over the Hulk, especially when Hulk has not had his own movie or show like the original Avengers? With Black Widow and Hawkeye coming out soon. Well, I mean, there's a couple of things with that. Number one, okay, we'll take this in two steps. Step one, even if Marvel could make a Hulk show, which they can't, by the way, but even if Marvel could make a Hulk show, I don't think Hulk, if you're going to do Hulk, you do a movie, you don't do a TV show, right? That's why, like, if Robert Downey Jr. was still playing Tony Stark right now, they would not do a Tony Stark TV show. They would do a movie. Same with Chris Evans as Captain America. You can do it if it's somebody other, if it's Bucky or something like that, then yeah, you can call it Captain America, whatever. But if it was Chris Evans, if it was the Steve Rogers, they wouldn't do a TV show. They would do a movie. So even if Marvel could do a Hulk story, they would probably do a movie, not a TV show. That being said, they can't do a Hulk show, nor can they do a Hulk movie. Technically, they could, but the problem is there are still rights problems with the Hulk character between Marvel and Universal. Marvel still has the production rights for Hulk. Now, what that means is that, you know what? Let me open up the Campea classroom for a second here. Just it'll make it a little bit easier if we can actually just make it a little bit more tangible here. Okay, so let's do this. Okay, so we'll call it Hulk problem. Okay, we'll call it the Hulk problem. And some of you may know this already, which is great if you do. But here's the thing: there are two sets of rights. I mean, there's more than that, but for our purposes, there is production rights and distribution rights. Okay, production rights is rights to make the movie. Okay, that's what production rights are. The right to make the movie. Distribution rights means you decide what happens to that movie. Let me see if I can, there we go. So there are two different sets of rights. There's production. That means you make the movie or the TV show. Think of Spider-Man right now, because right now Marvel, because of the special deal they have with Sony, Marvel is allowed to make Spider-Man content, but then the distribution belongs to Sony. So that's why when a Spider-Man movie comes out, whether it's Far From Home or Homecoming, you'll see Sony Pictures. Even though they didn't technically make it, Marvel did, but they're the ones who have the distribution rights. That means they are the ones who handle the marketing, who decides where it plays, when it plays, how many theaters it plays in, when it's going to come out, and then when it's done in theaters, where do we put it on streaming? That's all up to the distributor, right? And so with Spider-Man, Marvel has a partnership and a working relationship with Sony to do Spider-Man stuff. With Hulk, the problem is Disney has the production rights to Hulk, but they don't have the distribution rights to Hulk. So any property that, any Hulk story that Marvel wants to produce, whether it's a TV show or a movie, the distribution rights automatically go to Universal, which means Universal can say, thanks for making this Hulk TV show, Marvel. We're going to go put it on Amazon because they're the distributor. They have the rights to do that. And Disney has no interest, and I don't blame them. Disney has no interest in making Hulk material if Universal then just gets to be the distributor for it, because that's a big amount of cheddar. And that's also, they get to determine what happens to it. So yeah, number one, if they were going to make a Hulk thing, Hulk is too big of a character. They would make it a movie, not a TV show. But number two, and more importantly, they're not going to make any Hulk thing, because if you make something where Hulk is the main character, then the distribution rights automatically go to Universal right now. And that is a very tangled web, no Spider-Man pun intended, but that is a very tangled web that they've been dealing with for years. For years, they've been dealing with that. And so it makes it a very difficult situation. And so that's why they're doing She-Hulk and not a Hulk show. Hulk can be a minor character. He can be a side character in these things without Universal getting the distribution rights. But you cannot make a Hulk show or a Hulk movie without it belonging to Universal. So there he goes. Again, I'm oversimplifying it. I totally acknowledge that I am. I'm oversimplifying it, but that gives you the basic idea and the basic gist of that. All right. Now, Dominic is saying Universal isn't even using Hulk because Universal does not have the production rights to Hulk. All right. Again, let's be very, very clear about this. The people who have the production rights to Hulk, that's Disney, aka Marvel. They're the only Marvel can make a Hulk movie. All Universal can do, Universal does not have the rights to make a Hulk movie. They don't have the rights to make a Hulk TV show. They only have the rights to distribute that movie or TV show if Marvel makes it, because Marvel is the one with the production rights. And so Marvel and Universal have been stuck in this, what's the phrase? A Mexican standoff? Is that what they call it? They've been stuck in this catch-22. They've been caught in this Mexican standoff with each other for years, and I don't see any end in sight right now. It's really unfortunate. Anyway, and somebody's asking, do I know how long, I think it's Jesse right, do you know how long Universal has the distribution rights for? As far as I know, it's indefinite. I think it's in perpetuity. I think the only way Universal can lose the distribution rights, now I could be wrong about this, but to my understanding, which could be flawed, to my understanding is they permanently have the distribution rights to Hulk unless they sell them back to Disney. And they have no reason to sell them back to Disney because they have all the leverage right now. So someday this will get resolved. I'm just not quite sure how quickly that someday is going to get here. We'll have to wait and see. All right, next up. Madhu Vatan writes, I love the first Quiet Place. That was my favorite movie of 2018, but never got to see it in theaters. I saw part 2 yesterday, and oh my God, that was the best experience I have ever had in a theater ever. That film is so stressful and so intense. I loved it. Amazing. Dude, Quiet Place 2, it's not often that a sequel can live up to a great original. Quiet Place 2 lives up to and maybe even exceeds. I haven't come to a final decision if I personally think that A Quiet Place 2 is actually better than the first Quiet Place. But I'm thinking it might. I don't know. I got to give myself a little bit more time to marinate on that. But it's absolutely fantastic. I'm glad you enjoyed it, man, because I absolutely loved it. It was well worth the wait. Totally worth the wait. All right, next up. Our friend Kevin Rubio writes in. Hey, John, Rob. Obviously, Rob's not here right now. So a thought just occurred to me. Now that Disney and not Paramount own the rights to the Indiana Jones franchise, what are they going to do for the logo transition? It can't be a mountain. That's a good question, but help me out here, guys. I mean, obviously, in the first Raiders of the Lost Ark, you get the opening transition, right? Like the opening credits, you see the Paramount logo with the mountain, because Paramount's logo has the mountain in it. And then in Raiders of the Lost Ark, that mountain dissolves and you see an actual mountain as in the background, and then the camera pans down and Indy is in the jungle, and that's how it starts. But I don't remember them doing that same thing in Temple of Doom or in, and maybe I'm just not remembering, but I don't remember them doing that same thing in either Temple of Doom or in Last Crusade. If I'm wrong, please mention that. Amir W saying Temple of Doom has the mountain on the Oh, that's right. I totally forgot about that. That's a good question. Well, Kevin, my friend, I think they're just going to have to change up what they do. Probably maybe, you know what they'll probably do now? They'll have the Disney Castle, and then the Disney Castle will fade away and there'll be some, old 1940s European stone castle in the background. So instead of the mountain, maybe they'll do the castle thing. I don't know. Maybe. We'll have to wait and see what they do with that. All right. Next up, we've got Mike Lovin writes, 1 of 4. Hey, John, sorry for the mix up with my question. So here we go again. Okay. Crazy theory here. So in Infinity War, Wong states that the Infinity Stones each control an essential aspect of existence. My theory is that in Multiverse of Madness, Wanda is not the cause of everything falling apart. I believe it's caused by the fact that the Infinity Stones are the Infinity Stones. Let me try this again. It's caused by the fact the Infinity Stones in our, you probably meant our, O-U-R, in our universe no longer exist, and without them, our universe eventually falls apart, and Wanda is actually the solution to all the chaos, but is reluctant to help. because she wants to exploit the situation to rescue her children from whatever dimension or universe they currently inhabit. I understand that we saw the Infinity Stones being powerless and used as paperweights. This doesn't factor into my theory at all, because the only reason the stones were powerless was because they were outside of their respective universes. What do you think about my theory? Please be gentle. I will say this. I like the way you're thinking there. I do. I like your approach there. I like the way you're thinking, and I like the way you're approaching that. My guess is, okay, first of all, this. They need to move past the Infinity Stones. All right? They cannot make the Infinity Stones the main, pivot point of yet another movie. They have been doing that for 10 years, right? It's time to move past Infinity Stones. I don't mind that they brought up the Infinity Stones in Loki, because they were just showing, these are useless now. These are no longer a factor, which I'm glad they did, because again, we have literally had 12 or 13 years of MCU movies that have all been pivoted around Infinity Stones. Climaxing, of course, in Infinity War and Endgame. But the whole MCU has been pivoted on Infinity Stones for over a decade. They're done. We can't go into another movie where, yet again, the thing causing all the mayhem is those rascally Infinity Stones again. They've got to move past them. They've got to move past them. So on that basis alone, because I think Kevin Feige was sending a very strong message when Loki opened up that drawer and just saw all the Infinity Stones as paperweights. I think Kevin Feige was sending a very clear message. We're moving past Infinity Stones, everybody. We're done with Infinity Stones, okay? We've done them for over a decade. We're moving on. I think that was a very, very clear message. The other thing about that is, I still think Wanda is going to be the cause of the problem. I think Wanda, in her desperate attempt to recreate and remanifest and bring her children back into existence, is going to cause, maybe that's going to be a big Nexus event, because remember, they mentioned the Nexus, and she is in and of herself a Nexus being, that she may be. I still think again, I have no proof of this. I have no insider information. This is just me as a fan speculating, pure speculation on my part. But I still believe Wanda is going to be the cause of whatever problem that they have to deal with, when it comes to Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. I still think she's going to be the issue. That, or something that kind of sparks off from the Loki series or whatever, but I absolutely don't think it's going to be Infinity Stones. Listen, what you're saying though, Mike Lovin, is, consistently that does connect dots. Your thinking is sound. Your thinking is absolutely sound. Again, I just think that Feige has made it pretty clear. It's time to move on. It's time to move on from Infinity Stones. It's just time to move on. All right. Let's see. I got time for one more, guys, and then we're going to wrap it up. You guys are now only 45 minutes away from the next episode of Loki. I'm so excited you guys get to watch it finally, and it will end this live stream. By the way, this is the most we've had for an impromptu, out of nowhere, unannounced live companion video stream. We've got over 700 people watching live, which we have never had that many before for a unannounced, impromptu, companion video live stream. So thank you everybody for joining us for this little live stream of ours. It's good to have you guys here. Okay, so we'll end today's stream to still give you guys enough time to run, grab a drink, make yourself something to eat, maybe order a pizza, because I know some of you guys are probably getting together with a bunch of friends to watch Loki tonight as well. So let's do one more question, and we'll let you guys go and get ready to watch Loki. I don't know how to pronounce this. Inja? I'm just going to say Inja. Writes, Seeing the statue of the three timekeepers made me think of a comic by Jonathan Hickman where Captain America is lost in time. He meets Kang, Immortus, and Iron Lad. They're all Kang. So that's my shot in the dark bet for who the timekeepers are. Kang times 3. That's not a bad theory because remember, we were talking about this earlier on the show today too. There's also parts in the comics where there was like the Council of Kangs, right? Where there were like thousands of Kangs, maybe more than thousands. I remember there was this one comic where it's like, there was literally like a stadium filled with Kangs. Kangs of different ages and all this kind of stuff, but they're like all these Kangs. So that is a possibility. That is absolutely a possibility, something they can do. So my guess is one of them is Kang. I don't think it's all three, but I'll tell you what, Ninja. By the way, Fernando Rodriguez and Bryce Evans both send in super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you guys. Appreciate that very much. As does Mike Thompson. Thank you, Mike Thompson. Again, I appreciate that. If we do get to the end of this thing, or if we get into Ant-Man 3 and we find out that like all three of them are actually Kang, that Kang is Legion, I will remember you wrote that. Because you might be 3 steps ahead of the rest of us. Again, I don't think that's what they're going to do, but if it turns out that is, then you're going to be the one who was right all along. All right, guys, listen. There are still more that we didn't get to here. From Ryan Loner, Max, Ahmed Z, DJ Potato Skins, love that name. Do not worry, on tomorrow's John Campea Show with me and Robert Meyer Burnett, we are going to pick up the live questions part of the show right where we left off here. So if we didn't get to yours yet, tune on in tomorrow and we'll get to it tomorrow. At least, hopefully we will. And then again, guys, don't forget, tomorrow, 4 p.m. Los Angeles time, our Loki episode 2 open spoiler discussion. Looking forward to having you guys come along and share your thoughts and talk about Loki episode 2 all out. I hope you guys will come and join us for that. So we've got 2 big videos tomorrow. Hopefully you can join us for some of it, maybe all of it. Guys, thanks so much for hanging out with me tonight. I'm glad I've been able to kind of take you into the new episode of Loki. I hope you guys are all pumped up now, ready for it. Get some caffeine into the system. Get ready. I can't wait for you guys to watch it. I like episode 2 even more than episode 1, so maybe you guys will too. I hope you do at any rate. But yeah, that'll do it for me for now, guys. I'll see you guys in the morning, actually, in, less than 11 hours. Yeah, we got the John Campea Show in less than 11 hours, so I still got a bunch of work I got to do for that. So that'll do it for me for tonight, guys. Thanks a lot for being here. My name's John Campea, and until tomorrow, my friends, bye-bye.